Has it ever happened to you that someone you love deeply starts treating you with indifference, as if your presence were a given, just an insignificant detail in their life? It's a pain that isn't always expressed in words, but it's felt deeply in the soul. You try, you give your best, and yet it seems like your words don't reach them, your gestures go unnoticed, and your very essence becomes invisible. It's like screaming into an empty room, waiting for a response that never comes. I want you to close your eyes for a moment and picture this scene. Martha, a 70-year-old woman, sits in front of a table filled with photos of her family. In each picture, she is surrounded by smiles and embraces, memories of happy moments that feel like they belong to another life. Now, that table is filled with absences. Her children barely call, caught up in their own worlds. Her friends, once so present, seem to have vanished into the routine of their own lives. Martha doesn't say it out loud, but the weight of that loneliness and the feeling of being unappreciated are wearing down her spirit. She silently wonders what she did wrong when she stopped being important to the people she loves most. Does this sound familiar? Maybe it's not exactly your story, but that emptiness, that feeling of being invisible, is something many of us face at some point in life. But let me tell you something important. You don't have to stay trapped in that pain. You don't have to let the way others treat you define you or determine your worth. Here's a truth the Stoics taught us centuries ago, one that still resonates today. What others think, say, or do does not determine your value. That power belongs to you alone. Before we move forward, it's crucial to recognize whether you're actually experiencing this situation. Sometimes, a lack of appreciation isn't obvious. It's a series of subtle signals. People interrupt you when you speak, they show little interest in your achievements, or they always make your needs seem secondary. How many times have you apologized for things that weren't your fault just to avoid conflict? How often have you held back from expressing your feelings because you thought no one would listen? These are the small cracks that over time erode your self-esteem and make you feel like you're asking for too much when, in reality, you're only seeking the bare minimum to be seen and respected. Stoicism teaches us something powerful. It's not other people's actions that hurt us, but the meaning we attach to them. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." It's a reminder that while you can't control how others treat you, you can control how you respond. In this video, we're going to turn this situation around. These won't be abstract ideas or empty advice. I'll give you 7 practical lessons based on Stoic wisdom and principles of human psychology to help you reclaim your dignity, your inner peace, and your personal power. No matter how long you've been stuck in this dynamic, you can always change course, because in the end, respect starts with you. I'm Gabriel, and if this message is already resonating with you, I invite you to subscribe and hit the like button. That helps me keep creating content that brings value to people like you, those who seek to navigate this stage of life with serenity and purpose. Stay with me until the end, because these lessons won't just bring you clarity, they'll give you the tools you need to transform your life and relationships. Let's begin. Number 1. Let silence speak for you. When someone makes you feel like you no longer matter, the most natural reaction is to seek explanations, demand answers, or try to reclaim the place you once had. But here's the dilemma. The more you talk, the more you try to justify yourself or prove your worth, the less power you have. Silence, on the other hand, carries a weight that words cannot match. It's a pause that speaks louder than any speech ever could. In Stoicism, there's a crucial lesson. What you cannot control, You must learn to observe with calmness. And in many relationships, a lack of appreciation is a reflection of something beyond your control. Epictetus put it clearly, you cannot control how others act, only how you choose to respond. So what happens if you choose not to react the way they expect? What happens if, instead of pleading for attention or trying to fix what isn't in your hands, you choose silence? Silence is a form of self-respect. It's not a sign of indifference, but of self-control. When you let silence speak, you send a powerful message. You don't need anyone's validation to affirm your worth. This act, though subtle, has a profound impact on the dynamic between you and the other person. It forces them to confront their own thoughts, to reflect on how they treat you, without the distraction of your words. Silence isn't empty. It's a presence that fills the spaces where explanations have no place. I invite you to reflect on this. How many times have you felt worse after trying to explain yourself or demand attention? This doesn't mean you should never express your feelings, but there are moments when words only fuel a cycle of frustration. Silence, on the other hand, breaks that cycle and restores the serenity you deserve. There is something deep and almost transformative about embracing silence. It's not a tactic to manipulate others, but a tool to strengthen your dignity. Choosing silence doesn't mean you're giving in. It means you're refusing to engage in a struggle that drains your spirit. And in that decision, you reclaim something essential, the inner peace that no one should take from you. Remember, silence is not weakness. It is power in its purest form. It's a reminder that you don't need to shout to be heard. As Seneca said, tranquility is the reward of those who do not surrender to the noise of others. Make silence your ally and watch how it transforms not just your relationships, but the most important one of all, the one you have with yourself. Number 2, redefine your worth beyond external validation. A few years ago, I met a man named Daniel at a talk on philosophy and personal growth. He was 72, with a calm smile, but eyes that hinted at a quiet exhaustion. During a break, he approached me to share his story. He had spent most of his life dedicated to his family, working long hours, sacrificing his own interests, and always being available for others. Yet, as he reached old age, he felt his efforts went unrecognized. His children rarely visited, and his partner seemed to take everything he did for granted. He told me something that stayed with me. It feels like I only had value when I was doing something for them. Outside of that, I feel invisible. His frustration was clear, and beneath his words was an unspoken question. What do I do when they no longer see my worth? At that moment, I remembered a teaching from Epictetus that directly applies to situations like this. Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish for them to happen as they do, and you will be happy. I explained to Daniel something I had learned over the years. Basing your worth on how others perceive you is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. It's never enough. You will never feel truly valued if you rely on external recognition. The key is to redefine your worth from within. I shared a personal experience. During a difficult phase in my life, I realized I was spending too much time worrying about how others saw me. In that constant search for approval, I had forgotten something essential, valuing myself. It was a small but significant shift. I started dedicating time to what truly made me feel fulfilled, without worrying whether others approved of it or not. I signed up for a writing workshop, got back into reading philosophy, and little by little, I realized that my worth didn't depend on external opinions. It depended on how I chose to live my life. Daniel listened closely, and in the weeks that followed, he started making some changes. He picked up painting again, a hobby he had abandoned decades earlier. He didn't do it to impress anyone or to receive praise. He did it because it brought him joy. And over time, that simple act transformed his perspective. "It's funny," he told me later, "when I stopped seeking validation, I started feeling more fulfilled. And now, without trying, others seem to notice me more." This lesson isn't about distancing yourself from others or living in isolation. It's about remembering that your worth cannot be determined by how much others recognize you. It's a reminder that as long as you wait for someone else to validate you, you will continue to feel incomplete. As Marcus Aurelius said, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Changing how you think about yourself can completely change the way you navigate these situations. I know it's not easy, but what if, starting today, you did something just for yourself without expecting anyone to notice? Maybe it's not painting like Daniel, but it could be something that reminds you of who you are beyond external validation. That is the first step toward reclaiming your peace and purpose. Number 3, respond with action, not words. Imagine you're in the middle of an argument with someone important in your life. It could be a child, a friend, even your partner. You've tried explaining yourself over and over. You've expressed what you feel, what you need, what hurts you, but nothing changes. In fact, it seems like every word you say either disappears into thin air or, worse, gets used against you. It's frustrating, isn't it? That feeling of speaking yet not being heard. The Stoics offer a disruptive perspective for dealing with situations like these. Stop explaining, stop justifying yourself, and respond with action. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly: the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you waste your energy on words that fall on deaf ears, you're allowing your spirit to be drained in a futile effort. But if you choose to act with purpose and focus, your energy transforms into something that truly matters. What does this mean in practice? It means that when someone no longer values you, your best response isn't to say more, but to show your worth through what you do, not for them, but for yourself. Instead of insisting on being understood, start acting in alignment with what you want for your life. Don't explain your need for respect. Demonstrate it by setting clear boundaries. Don't ask for recognition. Recognize yourself through actions that reflect your own value. Imagine for a moment that you stop engaging in the same old arguments, that instead of defending yourself, you focus on strengthening your own choices. What impact would that have? At first, it will likely confuse the other person. They're used to you trying to justify yourself, explaining your feelings, or fighting for their attention. But when you act instead of talk, you send a message that cannot be ignored. You don't need their validation to move forward. Epictetus reminds us that while we can't control how others react, we can control how we act. His teachings emphasize the importance of aligning our actions with our values. If you say you deserve respect, but continually tolerate behavior that contradicts that, you're sending a mixed message to others and to yourself. But if you choose to act with firmness and serenity, if you carry yourself as someone who knows their worth, even without saying a single word, your environment will start to reflect that energy. Think about this. Every action you take is like a seed you plant. If you plant actions that are firm, consistent, and filled with purpose, those seeds will eventually bear fruit. It may not happen immediately, but the change will come. Maybe the people around you will begin to see you differently. Or maybe, and this is even more powerful, you'll realize that the real change was never about them. It was about you. So next time you feel like someone isn't valuing you, pause before speaking. Ask yourself, what can I do that truly reflects my worth? What action, no matter how small, can demonstrate, more than any words, that I am someone who deserves respect and appreciation? And then, do it. Because in the end, It's not words that transform our lives. It's the actions we take with courage and clarity. If this video has given you a new perspective on facing relationships where you no longer feel valued, I invite you to subscribe and hit the like button. It helps me continue creating content that provides practical tools and Stoic wisdom for those who, like you, seek to navigate this stage of life with greater inner power and serenity. Tell me, where are you watching from? I'd love to hear from you and connect. Stay until the end, because Lesson 7 contains an approach that could forever change how you see yourself and the influence you have on those around you. And if this message resonates with you, leave this phrase in the comments: "My worth does not depend on anyone." Let it be a reminder to yourself and to this community that your strength starts within you. Let's continue. Number 4, don't become what you criticize. When someone devalues you, your first instinct is often anger. You feel hurt, misunderstood, maybe even betrayed. And in that state, it's easy to fall into a dangerous trap, responding with the same attitudes you criticize in others. You become distant, impatient, maybe even dismissive. Without realizing it, the pain they caused you starts shaping you into a version of what you once rejected. But is it really worth letting someone else's behavior define who you are? Seneca offers us a powerful lesson for these moments. The worst punishment for those who harm you is to not become like them. When you allow someone else's disregard to drag you into similar behavior, you're giving them a power they don't deserve. You're letting them change you, shape you, reduce you to their level. But if you choose to respond from a place of serenity and dignity, not only do you preserve your essence, you also send a clear message. Their attitude does not dictate who you are. I want to share the story of Martha, a viewer of this channel who left a comment about her experience. Martha is 68 years old and spent much of her life feeling ignored by her family. Her adult children rarely visited, and when they did, they barely looked up from their phones. Over time, this filled her with bitterness. She noticed that every time she spoke to them, her tone grew sharper, her patience shorter, and her pain turned into resentment. One day, after a particularly tense argument, Martha looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. "I had become someone I wouldn't want to visit," she wrote. That was when she decided to change. Inspired by the videos on this channel, Martha chose to break the cycle. She started by working on herself, not on her children. Instead of focusing on what they weren't doing, she focused on how she wanted to be, regardless of their response. She began greeting them warmly, sending short but heartfelt messages, and most importantly, setting clear boundaries when she felt disrespected, always from a place of calm, never from anger. "I realized that being firm doesn't mean being aggressive," she later wrote. It took time for her children to notice the change, but eventually they started showing more interest in her. Not because she demanded it, but because Martha became someone worth connecting with. The lesson here is clear. When we respond to disregard with disregard, we keep the cycle going. But when we choose to act from a place of clarity and self-respect, we not only protect our peace, we also set an example that can inspire others to change. Next time you find yourself in a situation where someone makes you feel small, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, who do I want to be in this moment? Don't let pain turn you into what you criticize. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is not to be like them. Because at the end of the day, your character, your essence, shouldn't be shaped by how others treat you, but by how you choose to treat yourself and those around you. Number 5, free yourself from the fear of losing someone. The fear of losing someone who no longer values you can feel like carrying invisible chains, weighing you down with every step. It's a fear that feeds on constant questions. What if they leave forever? What if they never come back? What if I end up completely alone? These doubts don't just drain your energy, they reinforce a false belief that your well-being depends on this person. But here's the most liberating truth. You cannot lose what was never truly with you. Marcus Aurelius said, "Loss is nothing but change, and change is the very nature of life." This Stoic perspective invites us to rethink what it means to lose someone. Often, what we fear isn't the loss itself, but the emptiness it leaves behind. However, that emptiness doesn't have to be something to fear. It can be a space for growth, for rediscovering yourself, and for building a more authentic life. I want you to picture this: a ship sailing in open waters, carrying a heavy load, perhaps too heavy to move freely. That load represents the relationships that hold you back, the fears that keep you stuck. Now imagine choosing to release some of that weight, not because it has no value, but because you recognize that you need to move forward. At first, it may feel terrifying, but then the ship begins to move faster, lighter, freer. This is what happens when you release the fear of losing someone. You make space for life to flow again. The fear of abandonment is something many of us face, especially as we age. The distance of our children, the loss of a partner, or the fading of close friendships can make us cling too tightly to certain people. But emotional dependency doesn't just trap you in a state of fragility, it can also push others away. The paradox is that when you stop fearing loss, your relationships change. They are no longer based on need, but on freedom. The key is understanding that your worth does not diminish just because someone chooses to walk away. On the contrary, it remains intact, waiting for you to recognize it. Think about the people who were once in your life but are no longer there. Did their departure erase who you are? Did it define you forever? Probably not. You survived, you changed, and over time, you found new ways to fill that space. This is the natural cycle of life: gaining, losing, adapting, and growing again. At its core, the fear of loss is the fear of the unknown. But what if, instead of seeing it as a threat, you saw it as an opportunity? As Epictetus said, "No man is free if he cannot detach himself from what enslaves him." This doesn't mean you should push people away. It means learning to love from a place of autonomy, not dependency. To love without fear of loss is the purest and bravest way to love. Free yourself from the fear of losing, and what remains won't be loneliness, but a new beginning. A space to cultivate what truly matters: your inner peace, your values and relationships built on mutual freedom, not attachment. In the end, it's not about who stays or who leaves. It's about how you choose to live and love without chains that limit your being. Number 6, understand the root of disrespect. When someone doesn't value you, it's natural for questions to start flooding your mind. What did I do wrong? Why don't they appreciate me? Am I not enough? These doubts, though completely human, often stem from a mistaken interpretation. The truth is, it's not always about you. In fact, in many cases, someone's disregard or indifference says more about them than it does about you. But to grasp this, you need to take a step back and view the situation from a broader perspective. Epictetus once said, "People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them." We often interpret a lack of appreciation as a direct reflection of our worth, but that connection isn't always real. The way someone treats you is deeply influenced by their own insecurities, beliefs, and emotional wounds. Perhaps that person is struggling with something they haven't resolved, and their disregard for you is merely a symptom of that internal battle. Imagine standing in front of a mirror that doesn't reflect clearly. It distorts your image, casting shadows and lines that don't actually exist. That's exactly what happens when someone devalues you. They're not seeing you as you truly are, but rather a version of you shaped by their own fears and biases. The issue isn't your essence, it's their perception. Think of a friend or family member who has been distant or critical toward you. Their behavior might have nothing to do with what you did or didn't do, but rather something deeper, their own inability to process emotions or their personal frustrations. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, men exist for the sake of one another, teach them or bear with them. Sometimes a lack of appreciation isn't about intentional harm, but an inability to give more. That doesn't mean you should tolerate mistreatment or excuse disrespect. On the contrary, understanding the root of the problem gives you clarity to set boundaries. It allows you to say, I understand that this isn't about me, but that doesn't mean I have to accept it. Understanding isn't submission, it's wisdom. Once you realize that someone's treatment of you often reflects their own struggles more than your worth, something shifts inside you. You stop taking things so personally and start reclaiming control over your emotions. This isn't about blindly forgiving everything or justifying a lack of respect. It's about freeing yourself from carrying blame that was never yours to begin with. I invite you to reflect. How many times have you felt hurt by someone's behavior, only to later realize they were dealing with their own internal battles? Maybe it was a child who distanced themselves because they didn't know how to express love, or a friend who pulled away because they were overwhelmed with their own problems. When you understand that their disregard isn't necessarily a reflection of you, you can respond from a place of strength rather than pain. Seneca wisely said, "A man at peace with himself does not need to trouble others." If someone doesn't value you, perhaps the root of their behavior isn't your supposed inadequacy, but their own internal chaos. Understanding this won't magically fix the relationship, but it will give you something invaluable, the freedom to not let their behavior define you. And that is a powerful step toward reclaiming the peace you deserve. Number 7, make self-respect your greatest tool. Self-respect isn't built overnight, but it is the foundation that supports every decision you make and every relationship you allow in your life. When someone no longer values you, the most powerful response isn't to demand their attention or wait for them to change. It's to ask yourself, am I living in alignment with the respect I deserve? Because the respect you receive from others is a direct reflection of the respect you give yourself. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect or never make mistakes. It means that every choice you make should be guided by an awareness of your own worth. Saying no when something disrupts your peace, allowing yourself to let go of what harms you, and above all, acting from a place of self-love. Marcus Aurelius left us a powerful reminder. A person who respects themselves is untouchable. No one can take away your dignity unless you allow it. I speak from experience and from what I've learned on this journey. There will be times when the world seems to tell you that you're not enough. Maybe it's a word, a gesture, or even a painful silence. But here's what matters. Don't let those external signals define how you see yourself. Self-respect is non-negotiable. It gives you the strength to set boundaries, walk away from what doesn't serve you, and keep moving forward with your head held high. How do you cultivate self-respect? It starts with small actions. Dedicate time to what nourishes you, to what makes you feel alive. Take care of yourself, not just physically, but emotionally as well. Learn to enjoy your own company, discover new passions, and surround yourself with people who value your presence without you having to ask for it. Each of these actions reinforces the message you send to yourself. You deserve to be treated with love and dignity, first by yourself and then by others. Self-respect also means being honest with yourself. Ask yourself, am I accepting less than I deserve? Am I prioritizing my well-being, or am I sacrificing it for others? The truth can be uncomfortable, but it's in that discomfort that you find the path to a more fulfilling and authentic life. I want to leave you with this thought. What would happen if, starting today, you decided to treat yourself with the same respect you've always wanted from others? What changes would you make in your life, in your relationships, in the choices you make every day? You may discover that self-respect doesn't just transform how you feel, it changes how the world sees you. Because when you act from a place of self-respect, you inspire others to treat you the same way. Respect, peace, and the value you seek are not found in how others see you, but in how you choose to see yourself. Throughout this video, we've explored ways to face the pain of not being valued, not with anger or despair, but with dignity and inner strength. Because what truly matters is not how others treat you, but how you choose to treat yourself every step of the way. Life is a journey of constant learning, and every challenge, even the ones that hurt the most, is an opportunity to grow and redefine who you are. So I invite you to take these reflections with you and put them into practice. Ask yourself, what can I do today to honor myself, to remind myself that I deserve to be treated with love and respect? The answers won't always be easy, but they will be the first step toward a more authentic and fulfilling life. My name is Gabriel, and if this is your first time on the channel, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the upcoming topics we'll explore together. If you've made it this far, it means you value your personal growth, and that deserves recognition. Let me know by commenting the phrase, "I live with wisdom," and tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know which parts of the world are sharing this journey of self-discovery with me. Finally, don't leave without sharing this video with someone who might need it. There may be someone in your life searching for clarity and strength right now, and these words could make a difference for them. Here are some other videos that will inspire you to continue this journey. Take care, and I'll see you soon.